in the dying embers of human existence, as the asteroid, a behemoth the size of Texas, hurtles relentlessly toward Earth. The world braces for an apocalyptic end. Deep beneath the bunker, a refuge plunges into the bowels of the Earth. Here the chosen gather, their purpose clear, to preserve the very soul of our civilization. The 35 and 70 millimeter prints that encapsulate the magic, the emotion, and the dreams of generations past. These masterpieces, each frame a testament to the human spirit, are carefully cataloged and cradled in the cavernous confines of the bunker. Perhaps there was room for more, for friends and family yearning for salvation, but sacrifices must be made. The movie nerds stand united, the keepers of a flame, promising a future where the art of storytelling endures, transcending the boundaries of time and space. God help us all.
Welcome to Back to the Frame Rate, part of the Weston Media Podcast Network. Join us as we watch and discuss films on VOD and streaming platforms, deliberating on whether each one is worthy of salvation or destined for destruction in the face of the impending asteroid apocalypse. You can find more episodes of this podcast on backtotheframerate.com, where you can subscribe and share our show, and find us on our socials at Back to the Frame Rate. I am Nathan Schur, and accompanying me are the extraordinary movie mavens Brianna Butterworth and returning champion David Merrill. Woo! Welcome to the show. Woo! And welcome back, David.
All right. Happy to be here.
How is everybody doing this week?
Good.
Yeah.
We are doing well.
Great. We're going to get into the show in a moment, but I do have a question for both of you.
Me.
And I'd like to begin. It's been a little while since I've had a chance to do this. It's a hypothetical, and answer this any way you want. But both of you, this is to each one of you separately, but you work as an overnight radio host at a 500-watt station in Lewisburg, West Virginia. And this is back in 1999. So that's important detail. Your shift ends at 6 a.m. What song do you use as your daily sign-off as the good folk of Greenbrier County wake up and get ready for their workday? And what is the station's call sign?
Ooh, this is a really good question.
It's a really good question. And okay, wait, this is terrible. I have to ask this. So what's the state?
This is Lewisburg, West Virginia.
West Virginia. Okay.
And it's 1999.
It is east of the Mississippi, so it is going to begin with a W.
Yes.
Call signs. So, okay. All right.
I mean, mine would be WBEE.
It would
right?
be.
That would be.
All right.
That works for me.
Well, then I guess mine would have to be WDAV.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
All right. So 6 a.m. It's 1999. Now, does it have to be a song from 1999 or before, or?
This is 1999, unless you're a time traveler and you're curating music from the future.
God damn it.
But what are you waking up the people of Greenbrier County with?
What are we waking them up to?
It's West Virginia.
In
1999 at 6 a.m. These people want to get ready for work.
Okay.
Flower by Moby.
Okay, Flower by Moby. That's a good one. All right, I'm working on this one. I'm thinking about this one.
It was that or like S Club 7, but
yeah. Oh no, wait a minute. I know. I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about that?
All right.
I like it.
Very
Tell
good.
me why.
Good responses.
Mm-hmm. That was a good question.
Okay.
That is a very good question. I love it.
Important. Shout out to our friends in Greenbrier County.
Mm-hmm.
So.
In middle school, I did all the school I was like a radio host. I did all the school announcements. So.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't get me picked on at all. I was so popular. Went really well for me.
Well, if you hadn't guessed already, we reviewed The Fisher King this week. But before we get into our review, I want to welcome our guest one more time. David Merrill, you have been with us now. This is our second time joining us on the podcast. How are you doing? We don't have a lot of time tonight, so I'd like to just get a little quick summary. What have you been up to the last few months since you were last on a show? I think it was our Memento episode you last joined us for. But
It was Christopher Nolan's Memento, which you and I saw in a movie theater in Los Angeles when we were both living and working in the belly of the beast, for a tiny little company that could only afford 3 letters for their name, NBC. I'm fine. I've been working on a lot of both the creative projects and a couple of things. As we don't have viewers, but if we had viewers, they would see that I'm wearing a shirt of a semi-famous guy from my hometown because
but David, we do have viewers. We are recording this video.
We are?
Oh yeah.
Oh, now I'm really embarrassed because they're seeing, this is Mm-hmm. I wish I had a virtual background.
You look great. You look great.
Okay, all right. But we just concluded. We had Elvis Week a week ago, so there was the whole parade of tourists, and you don't call them. They're called tribute artists. Okay, they're not. You're not allowed to call them. You can't call them imitators. They're not Elvis imitators anymore. They are tribute artists.
When did that switch happen from an impersonator to a tribute artist?
This was a couple of years ago, and I have a very good friend of mine, and she acts as a DJ. There's a local hotel that has they host a show and a competition, and she's the DJ for it. And she would always invite me over and say, "Hey, yeah, you can come watch the dress rehearsals, or a couple of guest passes, and you can come watch the competition." And I was like, "Oh, the Elvis, And she's like, no, don't use that word. Can't say that. They are tribute artists. And I'm like, oh, excuse me. Okay. So it's been Memphis is always interesting. Nathan knows, he's visited here. He's eaten the barbecue.
I gotta come.
You gotta
He's eating barbecue.
We were there. We were there for Elvis Week in 2006.
Yeah.
If you remember.
When is it?
During Elvis Week. And we were at the hotel where it was happening. It was a sight.
I would love to go to Memphis one day.
It's a scene, man. You need to come down here. Yeah. You need to come down here. It's
watch some movies.
Fun place.
It's pretty cool. But I've been fine. And seen some movies and television shows, working on some things of my own, working on some things with friends. We talk about it a little bit later, if you want to.
Okay. I have 4 quick questions for you. And this is something that we implemented after you were a guest last time on the show. Are you ready for these 4 questions? Very important, because I want our audience to know a little bit more about you. I'm springing this on you out of the blue.
Do I need an attorney? I don't
think so. Okay. I don't think we asked this last time you were here. What is the first movie you remember seeing in a theater?
Oh, wow. That is oh my God. Woo. Because my parents were huge movie fans. And I think we've talked about this. And Nathan, my parents were divorced, and Nathan met my mother, full disclosure, on a visit here. And so my mother and father and my stepfather, they all had, but particularly my mother and father had very different taste in films. So I got to think about this for a minute, because my mother loved sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and period dramas. And my dad liked cop, crime, gangster films, or Westerns. Only realistic stuff, he only wants to see realistic stuff, was his thing. God, okay. You know what? I think it may have been Jaws.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that it was Jaws. And it scared, I was small. I was a little kid, and I remember it scared me so badly I didn't want to go into my Godfather swimming pool. That's not a joke. It sounds like a joke now.
No, it's
and
so
it sounds
cute.
silly, but it was one of these things of we went to my Godfather's, and there's the deep end of the pool, which you could see in, but at that age, my mom was like, "Come on, jump in the pool. You got your swimsuit on. Jump in the pool."
No, there's a 25-foot shark in there.
The shark might be in the. She's like, "Oh, there's not a shark in the swimming pool," and I'm like, "It might be down there." Anyway.
Yep.
Well, David, you should know I finally saw Jaws in my mid-20s in a movie theater, and it scared me too. So
Scary movie. Oh, and here's another. I just forgot this, but while when Nathan and I were living in LA, I was taking a screenwriting course at UCLA Extension, and one of the women that was in the class with me, very nice lady, we became very good friends. She's a little bit older than me. she said one day, and I thought she was playing the new guy to LA joke. She said, "I'm going to introduce you to Steven Spielberg's mother." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure you are." Ha ha. She's like, "No, really, but I think you'll find it amusing." She owns a kosher dairy restaurant on Pico. Meet me there for lunch and I'll introduce you to her. And I'm like, "Yeah, right, Marla. Okay, sure." Marla Manning is a woman. She's a very nice woman. But you know what? I went. This was a day off from class. So I went there and I was thinking she's punking me. It's a joke. It's got to be a joke, right? But I go into this place and I was 20 minutes early because perpetually paranoid about being late in LA and before smartphones or before they were good.
Right.
You know, I show up and I'm a little early. It's like 11:30. I'm supposed to meet her at noon. No one's in the restaurant. This lady comes in. She says, "Well, you can wait on your friend." And then this really nice silver-haired lady comes by the table and she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I'm waiting on a friend of mine and I'm a little early because I'm new to LA." And then she's like, "What do you do? What's your name?" And I told her my name. I was like, "Well, I'm taking screenwriting, trying to get a job." "Well, you look very creative. Who are you waiting for?" And I said, "Well, Marla Manning, we take a screenwriting class." She's like, "Oh, I know Marla. Marla babysits my grandkids." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, cool." I was like, "Do you work here in the restaurant?" She's like, "No, I own the restaurant." "Do you mind if I wait with you and say hello to Marla?" And I was like, "Sure." And I mean, none of this it's not
ringing bells.
It's not ringing bells because I'm still thinking she's not really. And then Marla comes in and they hug and they kiss and they catch up and everything. And then she's "I'm going to go get your waiter and I'll bring you some water and we'll see in a minute or two." I'm like, "Okay." And so Marla's like, "So you've met?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "She's a very nice lady." And she's just like, she kind of gives me this look. And then she comes back and the woman has a copy of a tabloid magazine. She goes, "Look, it's a picture of me and Stevie in the Star." She opened the page and it was a photograph of her and Steven fucking Spielberg, her son, walking down Rodeo Drive. I was in a blind panic. I'm like, I have been talking to Steven goddamn Spielberg's mother as though I'm, like, where's my brain? But, she was perfectly nice about it. And we had this lunch. And then Marla's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to say anything because if I said this in class, the bunch of, people that are in the industry, they're going to be, all over me, for this kind of stuff." And I was like, "Okay, but."
I had a similar run-in. It's nowhere near as good as your story, where I was at lunch with the two people, one of which I found out 40 minutes into the lunch was Dino De Laurentiis' daughter for like 40 minutes or so.
Rafaela?
Yeah, I think it was Rafaela.
Rafaela.
Or there's another one too, but she lived in LA at the time. I don't know if she's still there.
No, I go ahead, man. Go ahead. But
it's not that interesting a story, but like it was like maybe two other people, and this was before I met you, actually, when I was in LA, and I didn't even know much about Dino De Laurentiis at the time, but like I knew the name, but I was just kind of like, oh wait, yeah, I know. I didn't really gush about it at the time, but it was like interesting that I spent like 40 minutes with Dino's daughter and I didn't even know it.
That is really, that's very cool. It's also really weird because before we met, when I was working at Universal, a call rang through to my line and I just, I just picked it up because they had the services where it's like, it's for you. Well, it turns out it wasn't, but it was Rafaela De Laurentiis. She's like, "Hi, this is Rafaela De Laurentiis. I'm trying to reach." And I was like, wait a minute. Did you? And she was like, "De Laurentiis." And I was like, "Are you related to Dino?" And, because how many really? And she was like, "Oh, that's my father." And I said, I love Dune and King Kong. I'm just going to say that. I love it. And she's like, "Oh, that's very nice."
I have some thoughts on Dune, but
Well, don't we all? Don't we all? But yes. But so that's the weird quirkiness of LA is that, you meet people like that from time to time. So,
all right. I have a couple other questions before we get to our review. What was the last movie that you watched besides, well, you can tell us what you just saw, but what's the last movie that you watched?
Okay. And let's see. Okay. I'm struggling between wanting to be very honest or really,
Tell us the truth. Tell us the truth.
Oh,
What'd you watch?
okay. All right. The last film that we watched was John Wick 3.
Nice.
Because I really hate to admit this, but so like there was all the hype around the John Wick movies and all my friends were watching them and I just kept making fun of them because I was like, I go back to like thinking of Keanu in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or even making fun of him in Dangerous Liaisons, like, you must permit me to treat with skepticism anything you might say about the Marquesa, dude. I'm like, come on. And they're like, no, man, no. This is not, and I'm like, but the Matrix, they're like, no, this is not Bill and Ted with guns. This is not Matrix even.
So have you not seen it?
No, not until we just recently, it was like, it was the whole thing of let's check out the first one. So we watched the first, like, holy shit.
They're good.
Holy shit. This motherfucker's, he's the man.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man. So then we quickly like gobbled down. It's like we watched the first one, and the next couple nights later, like we watched the second one, and it's like, okay, well, we gotta find and watch the third one. So then, like, some things happened. We did some other stuff, but then finally this week it's like, okay, third one, boom, and now I got to see the fourth one. So I've got to see it.
I'm happy
like,
you've been John Wick pilled.
I am John Wick pilled. It is like, and I love the cameos. Angelica Houston. I'm watching this thing. I'm going like, that's fucking Angelica Houston. I'm like, what the shit? These guys.
Love her.
Oh, she's great. She is great. And Halle Berry, and I'm just like going. So we finally got it's not the Catwoman that we got, but the action hero out of Halle Berry that we deserved.
We deserved.
Because there was the whole thing with the dog and everything. She's like, no, you can't have my dog. And she looks up at him. She's like, you get it? And he's like, yeah, I get it. And it's just kind of subtle right there. And I'm just like, oh yeah, this was endorsed by the ASPCA, but it's just fine. It's fine. I love it. I'm a dog. Look, I have a cat, but I love dogs. I grew up with dogs. I get it. Sure. Mm-hmm. And they went and they kicked everybody's ass. And I'm just like, now I want another one. I'm just like, why can't the Hollywood machine turn out good stuff like this on a regular? I mean, I guess they can, but they're choosing not to. And you find yourselves kind of like we were talking before, having to cast about and talk to friends and go, is it really good? I mean, is this really worth the time? Because I don't want to invest 2 hours and go like, I could have been doing something else, So, but this was totally worth it.
That's great.
Two other quick questions for you, David. This one, interpret this any way you want, but what is your favorite movie? Right now, next week, last week? I know it's something that could be, it's a list that a movie that can change at any given moment, but.
And this is tough right because even I was saying was having this conversation Friday when I was recruiting people for this podcast. By the way, we were talking about before. While I was doing the recruitment, I got asked this question. Oddly enough, the woman that was asking the question she's a relative of the man that runs like one of the largest theater chains in the Southeast, Malco M.A. Lightman Company, which is run by a gentleman named Jimmy Tash. He's a good friend. I like him a lot. She's like, what's your favorite film? I'm like, I can't give you one. I can give you a short list, but it's really hard for me to go this one film. But okay, but if you were to say to me, okay, okay, you can't, if you can't give me one, then it'd probably be Casablanca and The Godfather.
Give me, okay.
That's probably the closest that I can come to saying
good enough.
Nathan, do you have a standard answer to that question?
No, there isn't. It's a list of like 10 movies that rotate every day, every week.
Sure.
There's no good answer for it. No,
it's 5 or 10 films that are like, these are really great films. And I would watch these again and again because they're great.
This is important though. What is a movie or a movie that you credit for turning you into a cinephile?
What film would I credit turning me into a cinephile? Okay. I'm struggling to remember the director's name, but The Sweet Smell of Success. This is an old film. This is an old film noir film, and it's a film noir film. Burt Lancaster. It was produced by this guy named McKittrick, and it was a box office bomb. But it's a great film. Tony Curtis, who plays, as we would say now, against type. He didn't play like the nice guy, charming, comedic role. He was the smarmy, streetwise hustler guy, and he plays a press agent. And Burt Lancaster is this demagogue columnist that, for this New York. He's like this very powerful media figure, and it's this kind of tragic story. But the thing is, I remember watching the film as a kid, and my father said to me, he goes, look at that cinematography. Look at how beautifully they photographed New York City. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, what are you talking about? My dad was not, he wasn't a filmmaker, he was a cop. But he's like, look at how beautiful New York looks. And I was like, yeah, it really does. It does look really beautiful. And it's this black and white, film. And so, we watched the film, and I actually at that time even had to go and look up and like, who shot this? It turns out it was like one of America's first Chinese-American cinematographers, James Wong Howe. And, and so that was one of the films that was like, I've got to find out how this film was made, not just who was in it, but how it was made. And for my parents' generation, I would say this, it was also a thing of like, if you talk to them for more than a minute about movie stars or actors, particularly my mother, she'd give you biography on these people. And she could talk you through the whole Liz Taylor marriages shit. All that shit. Well, no, she was married to so-and-so and then married so-and-so and then had this kid and then they got divorced. And then she got blah, blah, blah. And then they had this kid. And then she married this producer and they did, I'm like going, I'm like, what the hell? But, they knew this stuff. So, but Sweet Smell of Success, which is a great film. That's the one that really kind of like, what is this thing called filmmaking and production and how does it work? How do you get the beautiful, cinematography? Anyway.
Are you listening?
Avidly. He was staring.
Staring. Consequently, when he approached me on his way out, I wasn't surprised.
He was doing a special Sunday piece on
cigarette girls. And naturally,
you were thrilled about being interviewed. And were you interviewed?
In his apartment.
Where was his wife?
I don't know. It's a big apartment. Only I wasn't interviewed. In fact, I was totally unprepared for what happened.
Oh, come on, Chickie. We're friends from way back. A big columnist comes into this club without his ball and chain, and you make like a delicatessen counter. What did you expect he was going to do in his apartment?
But Sidney, sweetheart.
All right. Thank you. All right. So at least we got a little insight into what makes you who you are, David. So, yeah.
All part of the rich tapestry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can transition into our review this week. We watched The Fisher King from 1991, directed by Terry Gilliam, his sixth feature. And I have a plot synopsis here.
How?
I will read it. So, after shock jock Jack Lucas inadvertently provokes a caller into murdering a group of innocent people in a Manhattan bar, he grows depressed and turns to booze. As he's about to hit rock bottom, Lucas meets a homeless man named Perry, played by Robin Williams, whose wife was killed by the caller Lucas pushed to the brink. Mentally scarred by his loss, Perry spends his days searching for the Holy Grail. Lucas, feeling culpable for the poor man's plight, pledges to help him on his quest. So I also have part of the trailer for The Fisher King. I'll drop that in right here.
In the world of talk radio, Jack Lucas was king.
Look, I said I want an offer, they can forget it.
To stay on top, he did whatever he had to.
Forgive me!
But one day, Jack went too far.
It was Mr. Lucas's offhand remark that seemed to have fatal impact on Mr. Melnick.
No matter what I have, it feels like I have nothing.
Yo, what's going on?
And just when he was about to give up on his own life, he stumbled into Perry's.
Unhand that degenerate and remove your presence! I like New York in June.
How about you? You know who I am?
A hood ornament.
No. I'm a knight on a special quest.
A quest.
And I need help.
So yeah, a little bit of the trailer from that. I have a couple pieces of trivia and facts from this. This is, again, came out in 1991 on September 20th, 91, but it didn't go into wide release until the week after. So I like to do this, is kind of quickly go through the box office top 10.
No.
And I'll do this really fast here, but this, I'm not going to count the first week because it came in like at number like 26 or something like that, because it did not go wide until the following week. But the following week, it was number one at the box office with 7 million, not very big. But the second, number two in the box office, probably nobody will get this, but it was Necessary Roughness. And it also came out in its first week, 6.5 million. Scott Bakula.
Technically a movie.
Technically a movie. Number 3 was Deceived in its first week of release with 4.3 million. Number 4, any guesses?
Well, what
horror
genre?
Franchise. Horror. I think it's like the 5th, 6th, or 7th movie in this horror franchise.
Was it? Is this isn't Jason Takes Manhattan?
No, it's the other one, other franchise.
Freddy? Is this Nightmare on Elm Street?
Freddy? Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 55?
Something like that. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. I don't know which one that is in the franchise.
Right.
That's
the 55th.
Yeah, 3.4 million. Number 5, this is interesting. Dead Again, 1.9 million. Also had Robin Williams in it in a small role, which I thought he was really good in.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 6, Late for Dinner, in its second week of release, 1.6 million. I have no idea what that movie is. Number 7, in its 13th week of release, earning 1.2 million, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Good.
Number 8, in its 9th week of release, earning 1.1 million, is Doc Hollywood.
Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Number 9, in its 16th week of release, you just don't get this anymore. Earning 1.1 million is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Good.
And number 10, in its second week of release, earning 1.1 million, was Rambling Rose, which I know nothing about, although it did get some Academy Award nominations. Speaking of the Academy Awards, Fisher King did do okay. It won. Mercedes Ruehl won for Best Supporting Actress.
Mm-hmm.
Won over Diane Ladd, Julia Lewis, Kate Nelligan, and Jessica Tandy in that category. Mm-hmm. Robin Williams was nominated for Best Actor, but lost to Anthony Hopkins for Silence of the Lambs. It was nominated for Best Screenplay and also nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Original Score. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you one question. Robin Williams nominated for Best Actor. Was he put into the wrong category?
You mean you think should he have been Best Supporting?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm kind of wondering, because I was looking at the best. I wrote this. I have a note here somewhere, because Robin Williams, he was Best Actor. Do you think he would have been better off as Best Supporting Actor? Because that year, Jack Palance won for City Slickers. Also in that category was Tommy Lee Jones for JFK, Harvey Keitel for Bugsy, Ben Kingsley for Lansky, and Michael Lerner for Barton Fink. All those were good performances. I think Robin Williams would have won this.
He would have. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. So
I don't think Robin Williams is is he a leading man in this movie? I always thought of Jeff Bridges as the leading man in this.
For me, I mean, the distinction for me is always like, do we see anything from their perspective? Right.
I don't. We are with Jeff Bridges. We're with Jack.
We're with
Lucas's
Jeff
movie.
kind of the whole time. It's pretty rare. It does happen. It does happen when we're alone with Robin Williams, but it's not as often, which is why I think they got away with putting him in Best Actor. But yeah, I mean, his odds I think would have been better in supporting for sure. I
agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, the film starts out. It's like, what do we see? It's like, a close up of Jeff Bridges with a microphone. I mean, it's like it's Bridges.
It's his movie.
So
maybe they thought, hey, the guy that's in a movie for like 10 minutes is never going to win Best Actor.
By the way, how good was the opening of Fisher King, though, where it's just Jeff Bridges' voice and the microphone? I was like, and I was like, oh my Yeah, that's the juice.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know I drew the short straw. I'm going first here, but I'll already start off. I think The Fisher King is a near perfect movie. Mm-hmm. I've wanted to review this movie for a long time. The reason why we're reviewing this is because we did a little side bet back during the Oscars who was going to get the most
that Nathan rigged mid game. I want to point that out. Nathan was stacking categories and he was like, why don't we just take bets on other categories too?
No, I won it fair and square. And because of that, we're here to review The Fisher King. All right, everyone else be quiet now. That's it. We're here. Anyways, this movie came out at a time in my life when I began to have aspirations of a career in the industry around probably the middle of high school. And this is probably one of the 5 or 6 films that I can point to that really lit a fire in me where I wanted to tell stories on screen. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this movie many times, but every time I see it, I find something I've never caught before. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a tiny line of dialogue that Robin Williams utters that I found so funny this screening that I've never picked up before. So I have so much praise for this film. And I'll start with a couple of things here. The casting, number one, Robin Williams. I like him as a performer, and I think he's an excellent actor, but I've always felt that his movies, especially, they've always had a hard time. I think they have a hard time capturing his energy into a realistic character. He's often ping-ponging between roles in which he's playing a character that can cut loose with manic energy. And a lot of those I'm really not into. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are the films in which he's playing it very straight. And I think he's very good in those films, but either the character is thinly written or the film is lacking in other ways.
I feel like you're just talking about 1 Hour Photo here.
No, I think a lot of them, like Insomnia, 1 Hour Photo I like, but I think there's so many problems in the movies that he is in these serious roles. But sometimes he's playing in a movie where his character is somewhere in the middle, playing someone who exists in the real world, but still has that Robin Williams exuberance. This is the most fertile ground, I think, for him to be a great performer in a movie. Like Good Will Hunting, Dead Poet Society, Good Morning Vietnam. Yeah. And there are many more. But of all of these, I feel like Fisher King is his greatest performance, balancing these two worlds. That's my opinion.
What about The Birdcage?
Birdcage, yeah, very good as well. The rest of the cast is phenomenal as well. I love Jeff Bridges in this. He's honestly probably my top 2 or 3 favorite actors right now of all. Probably going back because I think of Jeff Bridges as someone that I have loved my whole life. Going back to Tron, because I think Tron came out in 82 and I was 8 years old. This was like my early
King
years.
Kong.
I didn't catch up with King Kong much later, but when Jeff Bridges eventually does pass, it's going to be one of the hardest days of my life because he's an actor that has been somebody who I've loved his movies every decade that I've been alive and every decade he has been performing. And this is one of the pillars of the movies that I love him in.
Nathan, I did a little Jeff Bridges rewatch this week and I did a few of his movies, including introducing my partner to The Big Lebowski. And it was such a great time.
The Big Lebowski, True Grit. Sorry.
I love the True Grit remake.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
True Grit
so much.
Yeah. I also I have to give mad props to Mercedes Ruehl as Anne in this. You don't see women portrayed in movies like this.
Right.
It was such a breath of fresh air. She's smart, perceptive, strong-willed, but also sympathetic to Jack's flaws. She's motherly. Also, I love her philosophy and perspective on men and women's relationships. And it's so rare for a girlfriend to be fleshed out like this in a movie. Another thing I found fascinating, and I'll leave things off shortly, Gilliam heavily is directing this film. It's the most directed movie I think there is out there possibly. I don't think I've seen this many Dutch angles, low angles, high angles, wide angles in a film ever. he's reaching into his toolbox, pulling out every trick in the book to keep the audience off balance. There's
when Jeff Bridges momentarily breaks the fourth wall in the beginning, like half a second.
There's almost no shots in this entire film that adhere to conventional framing and I really love that. But I suppose if you're not into the style, this can wear very thin after a while. And just finally, my only knock in this film, it's not really a knock. I love the story. I love the A-plot regarding Jack's redemption. The movie, I think, is trying to make a commentary on mental illness, trauma, and especially homelessness. And I think it's very inventive how it's dealing with these topics, but it's also very superficial and scattershot, especially the homelessness topic, which is coming up several times in this film. We can
rose tinted.
Yeah, we can talk about that more in our discussion. But overall, this is an excellent film. This is probably in my top 10 of all time. I think it's Terry Gilliam's best movie. So yeah, this is a 5 for me. 5 out of 5. Yeah, there you have it.
I love that.
Sure.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. I think this movie is really great, and I like Terry Gilliam a lot. I think this is probably his most grounded work. I think it's really accessible, but it doesn't lose that sense of absurdity and magical realism that makes him really special. When I watched this movie, because I saw it years and years ago and I sort of haven't seen it since, I was reminded of it's Arthurian, but it's also like Don Quixote. Right.
Yeah.
That's such a big part of this movie when you're looking at the ethos of it and the mythos of it. And the way Gilliam is talking about New York, this sort of like New York as a character in the film, felt to me very like, and I don't know that it quite hits the same level for me as what it's referencing, but it felt a little Abel Ferrara meets Charlie Kaufman, right? Like it felt like that sort of, we're just outside of reality in this New York that's maybe a little romanticized, maybe filled with characters.
Everybody's a cartoon character in this movie.
For better and worse. And I'll get to that. So I think the first third of this movie is perfect for me. It's incredible. I think it hits the brakes really hard when it gets into the romance, Robin Williams romance. Everything relating to the dual sides of grief and how it's approached from this mythic, epic sort of quest approach. I think that's so smart and so well done. And that's such a great character study from two stellar performers at the top of their game. And like you said, it's a stack cast. Did anybody catch Dan Futterman was one of the punks beating up Robin Williams. He'll later go on to play his son in The Birdcage. That was a fun little cameo.
I caught that.
Yeah, it was like, it's just stacked from head to toe. This cast, Michael Jeter, he's amazing in this. And Amanda Plummer, who I love. I just don't like her role. We talk about Mercedes Rule. That's a great character. This B-plot of the Robin Williams romance for me is where it really just slams on the brakes. And it's so hard for me because it takes this very serious coping mechanism that Robin Williams is going through and the psychosis and the side effects of his grief. And it turns it into this like manic pixie romantic thing, this quirky thing. And there's a lid for every pot. There's someone out there to match his energy and it'll be totally fine. But I'm sorry, watching this movie again, when he was just stalking her, I was like, in another movie, this woman dies. Like in another movie, this is a really scary situation, right?
Yeah.
And Gilliam, who's like not known for being super sensitive to this stuff, like from 50 yards away, this movie's written by a man. And that's not a problem, but I just didn't think the romance sold me on it. I didn't think it had anything. I think it takes away Robin Williams's ability to have a real arc at the end of this movie outside of a heroic act, because they've just given him someone that matches the level he's at in the middle of his grief. And I kind of hated that for him, and I hated that for Amanda Plummer. But I don't want to end on a sour note because I think the end of this movie is also really strong. I think Jeff Bridges coming around and sort of seeing the point of it and gaining this new empathy for his friends. And I think it's really strong, and I like how they wrap up the fairy tale aspect. Again, that's that A plot of the movie, the Jeff Bridges, Robin Williams plot. I think that is like masterclass. Love it. Could watch it all day. So it's a 4 for me. I really like it. It's just that one bit.
All right.
Sorry,
David. What's your take?
So I agree with a couple things. And so I'm trying to think of where do I start here. So this is definitely in a career with a bunch of great, bunch of great performances. Bridges, absolutely. It's like he goes, because, it's a thing of like, you see him at the beginning, and it's one of the things, his arc is like, it's just like he starts out as this, self-centered, jackass narcissist, that is really, I mean, it's modeled on Howard Stern,
Yeah.
It's like, it's Howard
Smarmy.
Stern. It's smarmy, the smarmy jerk off who just opens his mouth and things spill out.
Way hotter than Howard Stern, though. We got to give him credit where it's due.
Right. Way hotter than Howard Stern. And then, but then the thing is, I think about is that then there's the consequences. Where literally, like from the first opening scene where he's on the microphone and he's doing his thing and he's in his limousine and he's bored with his life and he hates the way his face looks, and he's talking to his agent about doing a sitcom, and he's going to be a big TV star now, to like, boom, tragedy. And, he looks in the camera and he's like, oh, fuck. He knows what it means. I mean, like he knows, he knows, I mean, being a creature of media, he inherently understands, the life cycle is going to eat him freaking alive. Like hyenas, and they do, and then that's when it tracks to 3 years later. Which, by the way, and the thing is in rewatching it, I feel a little silly that I never noticed it before, because I've seen the film probably a dozen times, but it was only in rewatching it that they're at the video store, and the meta thing is that on one of the walls in the office there is a film poster. I had one of these. I didn't have the same one, but there's a film poster for Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
Yeah, I noticed that for the first time too.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, oh my God, oh my fuck, and it's
another great movie.
Boom, there it is, which is another great film. And in college, I had a Brazil movie poster up in my dorm room, so I loved it. I'm thinking, the other thing is, I think, thinking in terms of, cinematography and scenes. One of you asked me about moments in films that are absolutely cinematic. Okay, the waltz scene at Grand Central Station, where everybody just stops and the music, and then they all start dancing. I'm like, who does this?
Beautiful. And Tom Waits is in that scene. Who does
Tom Waits. Yeah. Tom Waits.
Yeah.
He cast Tom Waits in this. It's brilliant. It is this brilliant, beautiful tale, and also it works on a lot of these different levels, because if you peel back the layers, if you go back into the whole, and I don't want to give people a Joseph Campbell history lesson, but the thing with the Fisher King and Parsifal, because there's a whole thing about the Fisher King being, he's dying of this wound and he has this grief, and then and then this errant knight, which is what the Robin Williams character Perry refers to, Jeff Bridges, when he's rescuing him,
just
in the moment. Yeah. And right. And he's rescuing him, refers to him as that. And then, segue into the whole thing about, you're saying like New York is a character. It's like, okay, so all the homeless guys come up to confront the attackers. And what do? They start singing, I love New York in June, as this weird chorus of homeless people. But it and he winds up beating up the attackers and fends them off.
Have you guys seen Tampopo?
Oh yeah.
Felt a little bit like that scene in Tampopo. But to your point about the myth, did you notice where the archers strike one of the hooligans is right in line with the myth?
Yeah. Right in line with the myth.
David, before we get too far, I'd like to get what is your rating for this out of 5?
Oh, I give it a 5 out of 5.
Give it a 5.
And I would say, just because, and also like to the point about Amanda Plummer and that storyline, it's one of these, like, I feel like, when I first saw the film, I thought, well, this feels like an add-on. But then in rewatching it, I was like, okay, and they're doing kind of this obvious thing of, Bridges' character has got to, repair or make up for the wound that he's caused. Robin Williams' character Perry, but that just feels that felt a little, kind of ham-handed, that part of it. But what I found very interesting was the Mercedes Ruehl Amanda Plummer back and forth.
Yes, that's true.
That
is great.
That between the women right there, that to me rang true. I was like, okay.
Her at-home nail salon.
The at-home nail salon and doing,
Bendy straw with tequila.
I just like how that whole scene is set up where, where Jeff Bridges is trying to get Amanda Plummer to enter their world, and he's like, and Lydia finds out that she does nails, and immediately knows that this is somebody that I can, charge full price for. And Jeff Bridges is like, well, we can give you a deal as a member. He's like, no, like $40 or whatever it is. And that's what I love about the Anne character. She's street smart. She knows people. She knows how to qualify people, and she's not somebody who's going to be taken advantage of.
Right.
And I think it's such a unique character.
She sets
in
the
cinema.
standard in her relationship with Jeff, and she makes Jeff come around. You know, it's really she's awesome.
She's awesome, and you get this. She's a real person. She's not like, this is not like, because like a film character was going to do like a funny thing or a tragic thing, but like, no, she's doing like the real, like, no, look, this is how it's going to go.
Well, and also because her character is somebody who is a person of the people. She probably grew up in New York. In honestly, she owns a video store, which is really a perfect metaphor for the type of person she is. She is supposed to cater to people's individual personalities, their needs. So, and this, and due to the amount of adult movies in stock, people's fetishes also, So she knows people's, and she's good at reading people. So I love that.
And she's not afraid, because I bet you she meets a lot of people who try to cross boundaries. Right. And she's not taking any shit.
Now, who remembers the title of the film that Jeff Bridges gives to, I think it's Kathy Jimmy?
Ordinary Peoples. Because I mean, if anybody who's been listening to our podcast a long time, it is the bumper for our recommendation shelf. Although I cut it off before that, but we're going to play it in a little bit if we get to our movie pairings. But yes, I do love that soundbite.
Can we talk about the absolutely gorgeous way that the sort of Red Knight was filmed? We talk about beautiful cinematography in this movie.
Wow. I mean, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's
so real.
I just love the design too. It's not just the ways. Look, they spared no expense in the design of this.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a young Peter Jackson was watching that and was like, one day, I'm going to get my shot at that.
Yes.
I'm going to get a chance at, you'll see, and he did, so. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it really is just beautiful. Again, I think the Jeff Bridges, Robin Williams stuff is the juice of the movie. Michael Jeter, though. The gypsy.
Michael Jeter.
Hey, wait for this.
I had a dream for guess who, Lydia. It wasn't for her, Lydia. It's only for you, yes, Lydia.
We lost a talent.
Some people can get their kicks watching couple and late night flicks. That's okay for some people who don't own VCRs. But Lydia, you won your grand prize. Just think of it. All the movies you watch for free now. Dramas, westerns, comedies. Wow! Video Spot has the best selection. If you like porno, we're your connection. And everything's coming up videos. Everything's coming up videos. But this time for free. For you, Lydia.
I love him so much.
Yeah, I had to capture all of that.
So Michael Jeter has a Memphis connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually majored in theater at the University of Memphis, and he did a lot of stage theater work here. I've met some older stage actor friends that worked with him before he moved out to LA and started his film career. So it's kind of weird, but it's one of these, like, when I learned that, I was like, what the, he's older than me, so I wasn't really aware of this, that the time is actually happening, but it's very strange, but very cool.
He was amazing. One of our greatest character actors. It's sad to think we lost him and what he could have done. But I love the bit in this movie and the costume design where he still has the tag on part of it. Like, that's so great.
It's great, and he's just going for it. I mean, it's even better that he still had that gigantic mustache, and I don't know. It's this. He's obviously delivering this vaudevillian getup. I don't know who he's channeling.
It's Gypsy Rose. He's his own Patti LuPone up there.
Merman, maybe, I don't.
It's a little more Merman than LuPone.
I love the. We're jumping all over the plot here, but one of my favorite scenes with Jeter and Jeff Bridges is when they're in the hospital and Jeff Bridges is like holding him and he's like cradling him. And this is a very intimate moment. And I forget what he says, what he wanted. He says, I want to be like, what, Katharine Hepburn in like Sunlight or Sunshine or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a beautiful, funny moment in the film, and it's riddled with these great character moments from Jeter.
Yeah. Sorry, you were trying diligently to take us through the plot, and then we decided to.
We're off the rails completely. That's perfectly fine. This movie's just so much fun.
It's great, but it does follow that sort of like hero's journey, and he's got that conflict in the middle where he's like, you know what, I did what I could, and he sort of falls back into his old ways, and there's that tragic interaction that he has with Jeter again, which is really, really hard to watch, I thought.
Yes.
The security guard's kind of pulling him off, and he pretends he doesn't know him. Like, that is...
Right.
Oh, when you feel secondhand shame when you're watching a movie, like that secondhand embarrassment, I was like, oh God, I just wanted to crawl under the covers. Yeah, it was hard. I think that speaks to the empathy that Gilliam's gotten you to have for Bridges at that point, because you so much feel for him.
He and you feel like with his films that Gilliam wants you to, he pushes characters like that so that he wants to push people. Just nudge them out of the comfort zone just a little bit, to where they get to that point. And to speak to Nathan's point earlier, we were talking about like homelessness as a theme, which is kind of which is kind of sad. In interviews, Jeff Bridges tells this really, it's beautiful and it's funny, but it's also a little tragic. He said, like at one point when they were shooting the film and they were shooting the scenes in the park and then the red night. And he said, so there's a point where they're actually, he and Robin, can take a break. So they go find a spot, and they move to a spot in the park where they're kind of under near a bridge or an overhang, and they go sit down. And then he says, like, a couple things happened. He said this guy came up who was dressed exactly like Robin Williams' character, and he was a local homeless person in New York that everybody knew, called Radio Man. And so this guy had, like, all throughout Manhattan, people knew who he was. Apparently he's all over the city, certain neighborhoods, Radio Man. But he looked just like, it's as though, they had drawn inspiration from this person. But then the other thing that happened to them, other than seeing Radio Man, was they got shit on by like a flock of pigeons. In costume, they're in character, but they were on break, and they go over there to sit down, and then boom, they just get covered in shit, in pigeon shit. And he looks at Robin, and Robin looks at him, and they just start laughing about it, because what the hell are you going to do? And then I'm trying to remember the other film. Then Bridges said that there was a film that he did that came out on the day that he got the news that Robin Williams had passed. And he was in New York to promote the film. And he said that he got out of a car, and they were going to go into the theater, and they were going to do interviews out front. And then he saw this guy a block away, and he said, you know, for a split second, he said, I could have sworn, he goes, for a split second, it was Robin. He thought it was Robin Williams. And he thought for in the second, he was like, it's Robin. He's playing a joke on me. But it was the Radio Man homeless guy.
Wow.
But the guy, because he had visited the set and they'd been very, very friendly with him, he ran up to Jeff Bridges and they hugged and they shared a moment. And he said it was really beautiful, but it was also really sad.
Yeah.
You know, and because it was like, you know, because he told this guy, he said like, hey, you know, it was kind of, hey, did you hear about Robbie? He's like, yeah, man, that's why I came, you know, and then they kind of hugged and he's like, I'm really sorry, you know, like that. So, you know, it was beautiful, but it was, and the film, the thing about that film is that, you know, it's mythic and it operates on all these different levels and layers. And I remember it came out, I was a freshman in college, and my college roommate had gone through like a really horrible breakup, and he kept watching this film over and over again. And, you know, I would come home, he'd be watching the film. You know, I would leave, he'd be watching the film. And finally there was a time when I was between classes or work or something. I'm like, he was watching, he's like, why don't you watch it? I'm like, why are you always watching this? He's like, well, watch it and you'll see. And because I'd seen it in the theater and thought it was really good. But to be honest, at that time, you know, when I was young, I wasn't really, I mean, I'm watching it, you know, like you would consume something, but I wasn't really paying attention. But then I watched it with him and was like, okay, I know why you're watching this film. I get why you're watching this film. I get it, you know. And I think that for a lot of people, you know, that are processing some form of grief, it operates on that level for them. I mean, much more than just the story. You know? So, you know, anyway, didn't mean to get esoteric on you guys.
It's brought us down.
Well, speaking of esoteric, this movie, I totally agree, David. But this movie, and Terry Gilliam, anyone who's watched more of his movies than just this and Holy Grail will know that he's a surrealist, absurdist kind of guy. He's head in the clouds. He's thinking up there. But this movie really wants you to know that it's operating on a mythical level. Like, this movie spells it out in a few ways. And I wanted to get your take on, do you think this movie fits in all of the myth that it tried? Like, do you actually think it's a good representation of the Pinocchio story, of Don Quixote, of the Fisher King? Like, there's so many allegories that this movie is making reference to. And I'm wondering if maybe, you know, do you think it's an accurate telling of all of those different sort of fairy tales?
So yes, if you think of it, if you filter it through the consciousness of dreams. Okay. Because I'll tell you, you know, in thinking about this film, like when Nathan messaged me about it, it was like, you know, I was thinking, Parsifal, the Fisher King, Parsifal, the Fisher King. Started thinking about it. So I kind of, you know, went back, I looked up some things and I was like, holy shit. You know, he really did take great pains to channel all this stuff. And then if you look at one of my favorite films, and every few years I revisit it, Time Bandits, you know,
I love Time Bandits,
and even Baron Munchausen, you know, so it's like he's playing with, you know, all of these things, storytelling, but he's also filtering it through, you know, consciousness, subconsciousness, dreams, magical realism, you know, all that stuff. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, it's like, because I would say that, you know, I mean, because like the sequence of the waltzes in the, you know, in Grand Central, I'm like, you know, I mean, people have, you know, that's like a dream. That's like something out of a dream. You know, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the story of the Fisher King, the
Arthurian legend.
And I started thinking about this as, you know, I think the obvious way of looking at this is it's a metaphor for the story that's obviously happening with Jack Lucas and Perry. Jack is the king and Perry is the fool. I think that's the easy way of looking at this, but I never really looked at it until this past viewing that Perry is the king in his mind.
Right.
And it never really clicked with me until
he's the one who can't get the Grail.
He can't get the Grail. And he is looking at Jack as the fool who is going to get it for him. And I don't know why this just kept going over my head for so long. I mean, obviously I'm alone in this.
But I think that this is, so my thinking is that yes, this story does fit into all of the allegories that it's showing you different prisms with which to watch the movie through. And it's using different fairy tales or myths or whatever you want to say to tell you different ways that you can watch this movie and interpret it. But what you're saying, which is how I read the movie, Perry sees himself as the king who can't get the Grail and he needs the work of the fool, which also lends itself to a somewhat problematic view of the mental health crisis in this movie. But I think this is the parallel with the Pinocchio because they go back and forth between who is the puppet and who is Geppetto and who is the real boy and who is who they're supposed to be this whole time, who needs to undergo this transformation. It's really well done. I think their storyline is so beautiful.
And you think about the beginning of think about the beginning of the film, and it's Jeff Bridges' character, Jack Lucas, what is he doing? Essentially he's telling lies for a living.
I'm so glad we're going back to the beginning for a second here, because I feel like we glossed so much over Jack's setup for this, because because I wanted to make a note here. I love how we are introduced to him. We mentioned how we see him, but he's in a studio that is gray, colorless, clinical, and the shadows on the wall make it look like a jail cell. I don't know if I never really picked up on that before, but I'm watching this in detail this time around for the first time. And he's living in this isolated world, and he's hermetically sealed off from the world. He's the voice of the people, but he is hermetically sealed off from the people. And I love that. And I've seen this movie, as you have, David, probably a dozen times, but I've never put this much thought into it until this viewing. And he's wearing these wonderful, beautiful, Versace clothing. He's living, he's in the castle, And first of all, I don't know how a DJ who I don't think, even though he's obviously modeled after Howard Stern, I don't think he's actually at Howard Stern level success. I didn't get that feeling. I don't know, but he's living the high life. And I don't think DJs really make that much, because I didn't get the sense that he was I don't think he's syndicated nationally, because he's taking calls from local New York people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always got the sense that he was kind of like somebody who was still on the rise. So I don't know why he has such a swanky New York apartment. But anyway.
Yeah. I know. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of have and have nots.
I know.
Yeah.
But it made me think of it. So, remember, he's in the limousine with his lawyer or agent, David Hyde Pierce.
Oh, I was so glad to see him.
Yeah, and then, but there's a homeless guy knocking on the window. He's like, "I'm not opening that window."
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm not opening the window." So it's like, he's like, "Yeah, a couple of quarters isn't going to do this guy any good." So it's even this idea that he was hermetically sealed away from humanity.
And we're seeing a little bit more of him. We see his girlfriend and this wonderful passive aggressive conversation that they're having. And I think there's a very important moment also where he is practicing lines for a TV show that he is going to be on. And he keeps repeating, "Forgive me, forgive me." And here's a man who's begging for forgiveness, to his crime.
Right.
So but it's inauthentic. But he seems to be he's asking, his atonement, redemption is going to come later in the movie. I think this is just a really fascinating way of setting up this character. So I just want to draw attention. The first 10 minutes of this movie are one of the best setups of a character ever.
Do you remember what he was doing when he was practicing the lines?
He was in the tub putting the mask on.
There you go.
Yeah. He looked just like the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt like Shakespearean, right?
It did. It really did. Yeah. It was one of those like, again, when I was younger and first I was like, oh, okay, big deal. He's in a shower putting on a mud mask, but it's like now you watch it and like, holy shit.
It's really smart.
Yeah.
And one other thing I just really, really love about the beginning of this movie, after he has this is 3 years later, and he has that argument with Anne and he storms out. There's a shot where he goes down the street. It looks just like Batman 89. Same cinematographer, by the way. I don't know if you picked up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Roger Pratt shot Tim Burton's Batman. Looks just like Batman, doesn't it? I don't know if you noticed the shot in the rain where the Dutch angle, the car almost hits him.
Oh,
that's right. That's
Batman
right.
89.
Yeah.
Anyways, he gets the Pinocchio doll, but there's a really, really great moment where he's sitting underneath the George Sherman statue with Pinocchio, and I love the dialogue here. And he's quoting Nietzsche, and he says this bit of dialogue. There's two kinds of people in the world. People who are destined for greatness, like Walt Disney and Hitler. And then there's the rest of us, called the bungled and the botched.
There's some great levity. I also love, and this fast forwarding, but I love at the end, thank God nobody in the city looks up. Like, that's so funny.
Yeah. Right. It is pretty funny. Oh, and you just jogged a memory. So,
by the way, I have to say, if I ever come on the show and this podcast stinking drunk and start quoting Nietzsche, please, someone send someone to my house for a wellness check. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So this is just a quick aside. But you're asking me about last film that I watched. So before I watched John Wick 3, we my girlfriend and I were watching To Catch a Thief, and which Cary Grant, Alfred Hitchcock, which I have seen a lot,
700 times, yeah,
a lot. But the thing that I did notice, and this was like your Walt Disney reference, is that so the motor launch where he's being picked up by the French girl and they're riding to the or she's taking him to like the beach club. There's a pause and you can actually see the name written on the side of the boat, and it says Maquis Mouse, like the French Maquis. So it was kind of, I felt like it was like, that's Hitchcock's little side jab to, I mean, maybe not to Disney as a studio, but it was like a little, cat and mouse reference thing, because they kept playing that theme, and I'd never noticed that before. I told my girlfriend, I was like, we win the lottery. So, we win one of those, like we win Mega Millions. I'm buying a yacht and I'm going to call it Maquis Mouse. So all the viewers or listeners of Back to Frame Rate are going to know that when they see Maquis Mouse pull up at Cannes or Portofino, that's going to be me and us. I will invite my podcast buddies.
Nice.
You guys will get invited.
Great.
Rock and roll.
We'll roll up in Cannes like ballers, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Like, what is that? Oh, it must be the Disney yacht. Why? Fool, because it says Maquis Mouse. Anyway. Bad joke.
All right. Yeah. Anything else, or should we take a break and get to our wrap up soon?
There's just a couple moments I want to talk about, and I'll be super quick. But there's some introductions that I think are great. I think how Jeff Bridges finds out the relationship he has to Perry's character is incredible. The introduction of Perry, but also just the introduction of where Perry's living, I think is really powerful. And I think it's so well done partly because of the way Jeff Bridges just looks in this movie. He blends wherever he is. He can look like Greasy Street Rat. He can look like Howard Stern Shock Jock. He's fitting in anywhere. He's able to sublimate really well. And then just your heart sinks when you learn the relationship, and then the flashbacks with Robin Williams later are so graphic and so shocking.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that was wild. And then we didn't really talk about Amanda Plummer, and there is some very sweet scenes with her. I mean, I don't want to sound totally down on it. The scene in the Chinese restaurant is really fun.
Oh, the dumpling scene.
I love
the dumpling scene. Is so fun.
And I was reading that was done on a rain night where they couldn't film outside, and they had they only had a few hours to do that whole thing. And there's no cutaways, if you notice, except for one tighter shot of Bridges and Mercedes Ruehl where they got one little insert, but there's no coverage of that scene. And that was just done because they just didn't have the time or the resources to do anything more creative with it. But what they did, I thought was great, the way they edited that. I love that scene, and it's comedic gold, I think.
Oh my God. Her going ham on those noodles, I was like, get it, girl.
Yeah.
I see you. The broccoli hockey, it was so sweet. And I loved how it brought the Bridges and Mercedes Ruehl character together afterwards as well, because there's nothing more emblematic of really solidifying your relationship than leaving the party and talking shit about the other people.
Right.
That's how you know that you're really with someone for life.
So B, you didn't really find, you thought the scene outside of Lydia's doorstep was creepy or a little much, or
no, I thought, well, yes, but I thought really everything that led up to it, where they're like watching her through a window with dumplings and he knows what time she's going to be everywhere. Like that was really the stalking as love trope. And especially we're dealing with someone with mental illness. We're dealing with someone who's lost their wife. I was like, there is an Abel Ferrara movie here where her character gets violently injured. I'm not kidding. I was like, this is not safe.
I get it. And I agree. But for some reason, the way that Robin Williams delivers that, and Amanda Plummer's reaction. I mean, in a real life, she may have slapped him and ran away or called the cops, but I just love that she says nothing and she is just tearing up listening to it. I found it very heartwarming, but I love his confession of love here.
I know that you come out from work at noon every day and you fight your way out that door and then you get pushed back in and 3 seconds later you come back out again. And I walk with you to lunch, and I know if it's a good day if you stop and get that romance novel at that bookstore. I know what you order, and I know on Wednesdays you go to that dim sum parlor, and I know that you get a jawbreaker before you go back into work. And I know you hate your job, and you don't have many friends, and I know sometimes you feel a little uncoordinated, and you don't feel as wonderful as everybody else, and feeling as alone and separate as you feel you are, and I love you. I love you. And I think you're the greatest thing since Spice Racks. And I've been knocked out several times. If I could just have that first kiss, and I won't be distant. I'll come back in the morning and I'll call you if you let me.
And I don't want to sound like a movie has to be super realistic about these concepts or people have to be totally pure for it to be a good movie. They have to be well-behaved moral compasses all the time. I'm not interested in that. I don't think that necessarily makes a good movie. I just couldn't help but think watching this movie, I was like, oh, it just made me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, where is this going to go? And then I think having her match his energy and play off some of the mental illness as quirkiness, that was what made it feel a little more icky for me, because I think it just robbed him of the opportunity for more of an arc for healing for himself with the A plot. But I mean, she does an amazing job. She's amazing. I want to watch her in everything that she's in. She crushes the role. I mean, it's a lot of it was fun.
I mean, and on the other doorstep of Anne's apartment, Jack and Anne, they have a really touching moment as well, where Jack is getting closer to his redemption, at least in his mind, and saying how proud she is of him. And I really love that. And it was really funny. This is really nothing to do with anything, but this is actually done in post, where he does the line steamed dumplings and mushu pork. What's really funny is for years and years during my marriage with Lori, I love to scream out steamed dumplings, mushu pork. And I get the weirdest looks. It's like, why? Because I never explain why I'm saying, but I get a look of horror.
Oh, so funny.
Because I just have to say,
there are a couple of moments with the Amanda Plummer character Lydia, that I think are so redemptive of her too. One is when she's in that video store and she's just there she's all business. She's business. Weird, but she's all business. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I respect that. And then I think at the end where she sticks around for him through all that, she was like, I thought that was really sweet. Yeah. When she's fighting with her, she's like, I told you his watermelon sheets need to be. I was like, all right.
I know.
It's brass tacks, you know?
Yep. Brass tacks.
All right. Well, take a quick break.
Sure.
All right. Thanks for dialing into our transmission. If you agree or disagree with our opinions, we want to hear from you. Email us at backtotheframerate@gmail.com. You can also find us on our socials at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube. Probably some more places too I can't think of, but we would love it if you could just take a moment and leave a solid rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you catch our show. You can pause the episode right now. We will still be here, and you can leave that rating and review. Also, you can share our episodes. So if you love what you're hearing, just let others in your life know how much you love movies and love our podcast. We thank you all in advance.
You know, you are a beautiful woman. You got your own business. I am surprised some guy doesn't just snatch you up all for his own.
Oh, you're surprised? Because I just never met the right guy. What are you gonna do?
No. I'm shocked. I mean, a childbearing body like yours. Well, I mean, a guy would have to be out of his mind.
Most guys are.
No. You, this incredible woman, going to waste before my very eyes? No, this is outrageous! I will not hear this. No! No, come on!
Jack,
come on. Here. I am your man, then. Let's do it right here. Let's go to that place of splendor in the grass.
Jack,
behold my magic wand and free your golden orbs right now.
Get over here.
You know what I'm saying, yes? Holding my penis.
Out of your mind.
What a wonderful way of saying how much you like.
Harry, close your pants.
Took you long enough, huh?
Let's see what time it is here. Let's do we want to sneak in movie pairings or we want to get to our vault? How are we feeling?
I'm down for whatever.
Okay,
I'm down for whatever.
Yeah. Let's do our movie pairings recommendation shelf, and I have to do this.
Yeah, I gotta do the bumper.
Gotta.
Excuse me, can you help me? I'm in an absolute loss. I've been looking for over an hour and I'm losing my mind. What I'm in the mood for is sort of a Katharine Hepburn-y, Cary Grant-y kind of thing. Nothing heavy. I couldn't take heavy. No, something zany. I'm looking for something zany. Or something modern would be fine too, like a Goldie Hawn, Chevy Chasey kind of thing. You know, funny. I want to laugh. I have to laugh tonight, really. Oh, do you have anything with that comedian? He's on that show. It's on the radio. You know the guy, he says, hey, forgive me. I get such a kick out of the way he says that. He's so goddamn adorable. That would be perfect. Didn't he make a movie? Ordinary Peepholes.
Give context to our bumper finally this week.
Mm-hmm. You snuck in the peepholes. That's
I know. But we don't get the fall. Yeah, that's
and
true.
Here we didn't do Porky's for our summer rewatch.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know. Think of what the world lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do our movie pairings this week, and I have to pull up my pairing. So I went with the theme. You're going to love this, B, because I know you're tired of this now. But I stuck with the theme of trauma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I told Nathan, I was like, I'm so tired of all the antagonists in movies right now being trauma.
I think
but you picked a good movie.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting one because in many ways I feel it's kind of a natural companion to The Fisher King. Yeah. Also stars Jeff Bridges, whom I've stated before is probably one of my top 3 or 4 favorite actors. Mm-hmm. The movie is titled Fearless. It's from 1993, directed by Peter Weir. Plot of Fearless is going to sound kind of eerie in context to our review this week. It follows the story of a man played by Bridges who survives a traumatic event, in this case, a plane crash, and he then begins to experience an entire shift in his perceptions of life, believing he's invincible, and starts to take some risks in life, we'll say, like The Fisher King, it explores trauma in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
This is another I have not seen in ages, but I do recall that it's got an amazing performance from Jeff Bridges and cast. Yep. Rose, John Turturro is great in it. So yeah, I loved this movie now like 30 years ago, but yeah, I think this is a great film to watch with The Fisher King.
I love this recommendation because I think Peter Weir is sort of like a secret great companion to watching any Gilliam stuff, because you can go all over his filmography and he goes everywhere from absurdist and surrealist, you know, the Cars That Eat People. That was one that I got into for our Australia series. Dead Poets Society, that's a little eerie, supernatural, creepy, but also big romantic, you know, Master Commander. You have Truman Show, Dead Poets Society. It's great. Yeah, that's a great call.
And I think
Watch more Peter Weir. Yeah,
I think it's just on video on demand right now. It's not streaming anywhere else, but yeah.
Worth renting.
Check it out. All right, B, what do you got?
I went with New York as a character and magical realism. I went with Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York.
I'm lonely.
Yes. Anything else?
I'm hurt.
Yes. And?
I think Adele's right when she says I'm not doing anything real.
What would be real?
I'm afraid I'm gonna die. I don't know what's wrong with me, and I want to do something important while I'm still
Well,
here.
that would be the time to do it, yes. I have a book that might help you get better.
Better?
It's called Getting Better.
Who wrote it?
I did. All of these.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yes. Wow, indeed.
Conclusion. Cats eat within his own plumbing. Me, who am as a raw or synthetic vaginal juices. Substantial crease. It's $45.
Yeah, good choice.
Great performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think Julianne Moore is in this. It's been a while since I've seen it, but this is a great representation of just the inside of your head sort of spilling out and what that can look like and what that sort of does to the people in your life and how you fit them into your art and your vision, and also maybe slowly lose your mind. So it's not a fun watch. It is a great watch. I think people should watch more of this. If you like Kaufman, if you see, he had that newer movie that came out a couple years ago too. I can't remember what it was called on Netflix. But anyway, he's got another one with a great filmography, and this is on Criterion, or you can rent it on VOD.
Okay. Confession. I haven't seen it yet.
I think you'd like it.
I gotta see it.
You should see this. I mean, because like if you like Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I really hope you do. You need to see this film.
And this is like another epic scale for it's big. Like New York is big. It's big.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Great film. Are we to me?
We
are.
Okay.
Or the other person on this podcast.
Yeah. So, okay, this is terrible, but like your question about favorite films. So I have an art house triple bill, and then there's a little footnote that I wanted to add that. But so I'll go back to the film that I was talking about earlier, Sweet Smell of Success, thinking thematic to the whole thing about New York being a character, because New York, I mean, like the whole thing, both like the physicality of New York, I mean, the actual street scenes of New York, but then also like the rough and tumble of, the really hard business of media in New York. Sweet Smell of Success, which I looked this up while we were talking. I was right about the director. It's a gentleman by the name of Alexander McKittrick and McKendrick. I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that.
Okay.
Who wrote? He also co-wrote the screenplay with Ernest Lehman and Clifford Odets. A little by the by, for us film nerds, Clifford Odets. If you like the movie Barton Fink,
yes,
that is There's a direct tie-in with Clifford Odets.
Awesome.
So Sweet Smell of Success, overblown media mogul who has a very corrosive effect on his personal relationship with his sister. And actually, if you look up the history of this film, Susan Harrison, the young woman that played the sister of Burt Lancaster's character, J.J. Hunsaker, has a somewhat really, in her personal life, had a similar mirroring tragic story. about in her own life. And somewhat, and actually I believe after the film was made, even she became a big success, she virtually disappeared from the film industry after this was made. So the other film that I would recommend, thinking thematic to shock jocks, is Talk Radio from 1988, directed by Oliver Stone, which was actually written by Eric Bogosian and Oliver Stone. And it's based on, there's a book called Talk to Death, The Life and Murder of Alan Berg by Steven Singular. So this is about a guy, once again, who, he's got this radio show that is, people are calling in, and it's somewhat controversial. And, he's left of center, but he's making fun of everybody. But he's particularly really pissing off people that are like on the right wing. And I don't want to give too much away, but it doesn't end well for him. But nevertheless, it is a great film. It didn't do well at the box office when it came out, but this is one of those films that, you see this film and it's an important film. And both of these films, Sweet Smell of Success and Talk Radio, much like Fisher King, there's a statement in there about the power of media and the influence of people that are celebrities, on the lives of people that are in their audience, but on the lives of people that are in their personal lives. So that's it for me. Although I did want to say, we are doing this because of the whole Fisher King reboot, right, Nathan?
What?
Oh yeah, I thought that's the whole purpose of this, because I thought there was like a but I figured you got the inside scoop that there's a reboot. It involves a testosterone impaired
Josh Gad and
testosterone impaired very successful podcaster who pisses off a lot of people. Yeah, it's based off of a guy that Nathan and I are intimately aware of. We worked on a show with him. I can't say the name for contractual purposes. I would just say that it rhymes with beer actor. So if you understand that, but the subplot is that he offends some billionaire and their woke child, and then it gets. I don't want to get into it too much, but yeah. Anyway,
testosterone impaired sounds like a kind way to say balding.
One could be, I would, yes, one could say that. One could say that.
It just sounds like a new synonym.
Yeah.
No learning.
We could, sure.
Growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, these are all very good picks, everyone. Oh,
those
and I did
awesome
want to make a note that I saw that Sweet Smell of Success. It's streaming everywhere: Hoopla, Criterion Channel, Canopy, Pluto.
I want to check this out.
You can catch it everywhere. And Talk Radio, you can rent on VOD. Good picks. I'm happy that you have two picks, because without Sam this week, we can now fill our letterbox recommendations with all 4 movies. So, yay! All right, look for we don't mention enough on when I do my housekeeping, but we have a letterbox channel.
Go check out Letterboxd.
Go check it out.
Yeah,
so see everything that we watch. And our reviews on them. There are links to it. Okay, let's get to the last
point
thing
of the
here.
podcast.
The point of why we're here is if we are going to save or purge the Fisher King. So much suspense if we're gonna keep this movie or not. Yeah, we're gonna keep this. I am. I'm personally this. Like I said, this is a 5-star movie for me. I think there's so many layers to this, so much depth to this film. I could watch this another 5 times and find more things to mine in this movie. I think I can't say enough that I love about this film. So yes, I've said my piece. Keep it, save it. B.
I think there are stories that overtly use storytelling as a device, maybe a little bit better, but for the performances alone, I think you got to keep this one in here. I think it's a yes for me.
I would concur with this Supreme Court of cinema. I have to, I will not be the dissenting vote. Thank you. Yeah. So I agree. And what B said is, absolutely, tracks, to my own, and again, it's also this thing, I think it speaks to the fact that, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, yeah, the relationship with Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams' character, sure, but Amanda Plummer, Mercedes Ruehl. I mean, Mercedes Ruehl won an Academy Award for this.
Yeah.
So, and actually, part of me really feels like Amanda Plummer probably should have been. I feel silly. I don't know this. She should, if she wasn't nominated, she should have been for supporting. Because it's a small role, but it was one.
She did a lot with it.
She did a lot with it. I mean, she really, like you mentioned this film, and then I mentioned to an older friend, he was like, "Oh, the girl in the Chinese with the dumplings." I'm like, "Yeah, the girl with the Chinese, yeah,
yeah,
memorable."
Let's lock this away in the annals of film history for all mankind.
That's satisfying.
We have made it. We have made it so.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
There you have it. All right. So before we wrap it up, David, any last words? Anything you want to plug? Things going on with you? Anything coming out that you're involved in? This is your chance.
Okay. So nothing immediate, but I will say that a nonprofit that I helped start, Inventors, Movers, Makers, IMM, which is an art exhibit telling the story of the untold story of African-American inventors and technologists at the turn of the century. We're developing an AV component, and that is to say, an anthological series what we want to do is produce for streaming, like little mini docs, probably, 30, 40 minutes in length that tell these stories of these African-American inventors at turn of the century. I have recently come into contact with a couple of really well-respected African-American filmmakers that have signed on when we have, contracts pending. I don't want to be mysterious about it, but, until things are, really solid, I don't want to mention names, but they're some well-known folks, certainly better known than myself. I'm working on that. And then there's the creative projects that Nathan knows about, which are still, like in, I don't know, do people say in the hopper? I don't know. That's an old, whatever, in the,
I think, sure. Yeah. Like we know about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Working on the paranormal show idea, and then the show about Memphis in 1968. So there's that.
That's a lot. You're busy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us again on the show. Always a pleasure. Would you come back again sometime?
You know that I would.
Okay.
Past and future guests.
Okay.
Right. I absolutely would. It's like, this is like him. It's like, you want to come over to the house? We're going to grill some hamburgers. I'm like, I'm going to say no. No. I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to say, like, okay, I'll pick up the cream soda because I know you like cream soda, or you still like cream soda, right? You haven't gone that woke on me, have you? I'm kidding. I don't know.
All right. Well,
I
thank
love
you.
cream soda.
I should, I have a cream soda and root beer collection. Do you remember this, David? I everywhere I go in the country, if I go to one of those like mom and pop country stores, general stores, I will find where is your root beer or cream soda? And I'll say, is it like some local bottler? And I will buy buy two of them, one that I'll drink. And usually I drink both of them, but like I'll save the bottle and add to my collection. I have about 270 bottles, only cream soda and root beer. Nothing else.
I do recall that from our time in LA.
They used to be on display. They're no longer on display anymore because I'm not allowed to have them on display.
We need to go to bed now. We got to go. This podcast is done for the night. It's been real. It's been great. It's been really great.
I will show you my root beer bottle collections.
That's okay.
He's going to play us out with the Von Trapp family singers with the whole like, goodbye. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen,
goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
All right. Well, Thanks, everyone, for tuning in this week. Next week, we begin our next retrospective series. Very excited about this. Our retrospective series is called Back to the Frame Rate and the Quest for Fortune and Glory. We are going to be watching the first 4 films in the Indiana Jones franchise, not 5, because we reviewed The Dial of Destiny last year. Before, B, you were part of the team, but that's okay. Can't wait to see. B, you've never seen any of these movies, so we're going to be getting first-hand reaction.
Excited. Okay, so here's what I know about Indiana Jones, because I'm going in very blind. I know
dust and hat, right?
Yeah, I know there's dust. I know he wears a hat. I believe there's a whip at some point, potentially Treasure. It's either a pirate movie or that's all I know. But joining us will be someone who loves this movie.
I'm so sad that I can't be in the same room while you watch this for the first time. That's the thing.
Really could.
I wish that I could too, just for the same thing of. So I had 2 friends that were huge Game of Thrones nerds. Okay, and this is a little side story, but they 2 huge, and so I watched Game of Thrones with them, and we're watching the episode with the Red Wedding. And if you know the show, you know this. And then what I noticed was odd was like I'm in my buddy's living room, and the 2 of them aren't watching the screen anymore. At a certain point, they start looking at me.
Yep.
And I thought it was, and before things happen, I'm like, why are they looking at me? And then I'll just say this: in the Red Wedding, the shit goes down, and I lost my mind. I mean, I literally jumped off the sofa and was like, what the fuck was that? You know, and they're both like laughing and rolling around and giggling. I'm like, you guys are assholes. You guys, you knew this was coming. You knew this was coming. You didn't tell me. And they're like, well, you know, we're not going to spoil it for you.
That's how I would be if I was watching these movies with you, B. I'd be just staring at you.
Yes.
I'm really excited.
Can you put a little camera in your living room so that I can just watch you?
So here's what I think. I think I'm going to like take a little Google Notes screen grab and just go like 10 things I'm pretty sure I know to be true about Indiana Jones.
Right.
Hat, dust, pirates. Maybe, yeah. Like there's treasure. There's buried treasure or something at some point. I think there's like gold. That's something I'm pretty. And is there a small boy? That feels right.
I don't have to censor that.
Yeah.
No, I think there's like a companion.
No, I mean,
companions.
That's not companions. Yeah.
Small boys and whips. Yep.
It's like a Goonies situation. I might be thinking of the Goonies for some of this. Are there ghosts? I think.
Well,
I don't know. See, this is. I don't know. These are just things I'm pretty sure.
So for your dinner and a movie thing, for the first one, I'll say this: like, pick a good white French wine. And do you like dates?
Wine pairings with our movies? Ooh.
You know, a good white wine that you enjoy, and do you like, you know, like dates or dried apricots? You know, you want to have a few of those. Just you know, just have them on hand. Just have them on hand for that one. Yeah.
All right. I'll need sustenance.
You need sustenance, and then for the second one, maybe you want Chinese food and champagne. You know, just saying. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Or
maybe Indian.
Maybe,
I would say
Indian.
Some curry. Or...
There you go. Better choice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, really,
are we
anything goes.
At some point?
Nathan. Yeah.
I don't know. And this is not me. I'm not making this up. Like, I really just have managed to be spoiler free on Indiana Jones.
That's good.
Almost 33 years.
That's good. That's good.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll send over my expectations.
All right. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up. That is the show this week. Back to the Frame Rate is part of the Weston Media Podcast Network. We wish to thank Brian Ellsworth for our show opening. On behalf of all of us, we bid you farewell from the Fall Shelter. Your presence in our underground sanctuary is truly appreciated. We are truly sorry you could not join us, but we want to express our gratitude for your company. If you're finding solace in our discussions, we kindly ask that you please subscribe and leave a rating review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever portal connects you to our broadcast. You bastards. Stop trying to make me laugh. There you can find more episodes of this podcast and also on our website, backtotheframerate.com. And Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, all of our socials, our handle is Back to the Frame Rate. Your support is the beacon of light that brightens our confined space. Until we emerge from the fallout, stay with us, keep hope alive, and keep those reviews coming. This is the end of our transmission. Back to the Frame Rate, signing off.
I want you to know it's over.